The scale stopped moving. Here is what your doctor probably will not tell you about GLP-1 plateaus, because until recently, we did not have good data on them. Now we do. A plateau on GLP-1 treatment is when your weight stops decreasing for 4 or more weeks despite continued medication use. It is not a sign the drug stopped working. It is your body reaching a new equilibrium. And it happens to most people. A 2026 NIH analysis of electronic health records from over 40,000 GLP-1 patients found that about 60% experience at least one plateau during treatment. The average onset is around 20 to 24 weeks, which is roughly 5 to 6 months in. Plateaus are the rule, not the exception. Why do they happen? Several mechanisms. First, metabolic adaptation. When you lose weight, your resting metabolic rate drops because you have less body mass to maintain. A person who loses 15% of their body weight may burn 300 to 500 fewer calories per day at rest than they did at their starting weight. That is not a GLP-1 specific effect. It happens with any weight loss method. The drug is still working, but the caloric deficit it creates shrinks as your metabolism adjusts. Second, dose ceiling. Most GLP-1 prescribing follows a fixed titration schedule. You go up to the maximum approved dose and stay there. If your weight loss stalls at that dose, there is no higher step within the approved range. Some clinicians experiment with splitting doses or timing adjustments, but the evidence for those strategies is limited. Third, behavioral drift. Over time, many patients gradually increase their caloric intake without realizing it. The appetite suppression from GLP-1s is strong initially, but may feel less intense as your body adjusts. Portion sizes creep up. Snacking frequency increases. A 2025 study in obesity found that patients who tracked their food intake during plateaus were consuming 20 to 30% more calories than they were at their lowest intake point, even though they subjectively reported eating the same amount. What actually works to break a plateau? The NIH analysis identified several strategies with measurable effects. Increasing protein intake to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight daily. This preserves lean mass and increases thermic effect, the calories your body burns digesting protein. Patients who increased protein after a plateau lost an additional 2 to 4% of body weight over 12 weeks compared to those who did not change their intake. Adding or increasing resistance training. 2 to 3 sessions per week. Cardio alone did not break plateaus in the data. Strength training did, likely through lean mass preservation and metabolic rate support. Reassessing caloric intake with a 1-week food log. Not forever, just 1 week to recalibrate your actual intake versus what you think you're eating. The gap is usually larger than people expect. Discussing a dose adjustment with your clinician. Some patients benefit from a brief dose reduction followed by retitration, which can restore sensitivity. Others may need a different GLP-1 medication entirely. Switching from semaglutide to tirzepatide, or vice versa, broke plateaus in about 30 to 40% of cases in a small 2025 retrospective study. What does not work well? Fasting. Intermittent fasting on top of GLP-1 appetite suppression often leads to inadequate protein and nutrient intake, which worsens lean mass loss and can deepen the plateau. Extreme calorie cutting below 800 calories per day increases the risk of gallstones, hair loss, and metabolic slowdown without reliably improving long-term outcomes. Plateaus are frustrating, but they are not failure. They are information. Your body is telling you something about its current set point. The right response is not panic or quitting. It is a targeted adjustment. Talk with your clinician before making any medication changes. For plain language GLP-1 updates, visit theglpspot.com.